is our next speaker. Dr. Graham is a graduate of Emory Dental School. He is the former dental director of the University of Chicago's Department of Dentistry. Dr. Graham is the founder of Catapult Education, LLC. He enjoys providing dental care at his private practice, University Dental Professionals in Chicago, Illinois' Hyde Park. He is also one of the better guys you will ever meet. Here's Dr. Graham.
Welcome. So today, I kind of want to take a whole different look at the initial exam. And you think, the initial exam, how can we make that interesting? We are going to make it totally interesting. We live and breathe on growing our practices with initial exams and recall exams. And today, it's all about the initial exam. And I'm going to tell you, you got to forget the days of just using an Explorer, a periodontal probe, a mirror, and an X-ray. So let's take a look at what we're talking about today. You know, whether you get an internet referral or a patient referral, they are two different breeds because you're getting patients from two different sources. Either which way, you're getting a referral. And if they sign up on our website and make an appointment to be contacted or they call, there is always that first call. And that first call, we have an intake sheet. And the intake sheet is a questionnaire, and there are two key questions on this questionnaire. Now, there are a bunch, but there's two key ones. The first key question is, tell me about your chief concern. So here's my dental receptionist who intakes all of our new patients, and she wants to know, what's your chief concern? Sounds simple. Second one is, if you had a magic wand for your dental care, what would you do? I want to know before I walk into that room, what do they want? It's so important to understand what that patient wants. Sounds so simple. But it's not just looking for cavities or orthodontics. What do they want? So the initial exam really starts in my office, in my morning huddle. I read the intake form. I want to know, how did they hear about us? Do they hear about us from a patient, and that warms up the conversation? Or do they hear about us from Google? If they heard about us from Google, it's a whole different starting point because I have to really go out and say, they don't know me. I've got to really earn their trust and respect, even more so than just a referred patient. Because it's kind of already there. They were referred. So it really begins with me getting to know the patient. I want to understand their chief concern, so I'm walking in knowing their magic wand. Then, of course, I'm going to review the medical and dental histories, and they really become so important for me to really think about my customized diagnostic approach. So what does that mean? What it really means is that I'll spend no more than 10 minutes meeting and greeting the patient and taking a precursory look in their mouth. That's really it. So their dental exam can really be encompassing. And if you don't have really a great dental form asking about the familial history, about their smile, their clenching, their sleeping, we have all of this in our dental form. And if possible, I'd like to have it before I walk in that room, which would be great, but oftentimes they're just putting the patient in and I'll review it in front of them. Fine. Add that to the medical history and it's amazing what we can learn. Remember, this is just your initial exam. So I'm probably with the patient no more than 10 minutes at this point. Quick look in their mouth, look at their risk factors, and then really I'm ready to walk out. And with my team, which I call a great team, I can walk into my operatory 20 to 30 minutes later. So I'm doing some hygiene checks or I'm doing a minor restorative procedure. And my examination really begins then. And I can't begin to go into how much dentistry has changed. I graduated dental school in 1982. 1982 seems like it was an archaic time. Archaic. So let's talk about the changing times. It relates in dentistry to creating more efficient diagnostics that result in better decision making and ultimately a higher quality of care. Who can deny that? Is an Explorer the answer? Is a 2D X-ray the answer? Very rarely is it just that as an answer. This then leads to treatment plans that ideally well diagnosed can lead to, I call, lowered costs, because you're going to be able to create the best treatment plan or options with the highest chance of success. And you'll see more as this goes along. To me, and this is what I train everybody on in my office, you got to listen to the patient. You got to listen. And you have to take that listening with a customized diagnostic approach and communicate with the patient. It sounds so simple, but if you've listened to the patient and you've got the latest diagnostics, and you may not be able to come up with a full treatment plan that day, but you may have to spend a second visit to do that. In other words, present a variety of different treatment plans. But it's really all about that communication is the key link. So modern day diagnostics, the bottom line. The bottom line is they should be customized to each office's focus. What's your focus in your office? What's your mission? And then the diagnostics should be specific to each patient. And it should be all to the betterment of a patient. So gone are the days, hi, you sit in my chair, I need an FMX. Really? Why do you need an FMX on every patient? Why do you need anything on? You have to really see and understand that patient. So the diagnostic approach has to be specific to that patient. So you have these customized diagnostics, and the key is you must create the wanton need. You must create the wanton need. So if you can provide information to the patient, this will create a path of communication and allow you two to interact. You gotta get them to want their treatment. If you walk out of that room and they don't want their treatment, it's just not gonna be successful. Your care just won't move forth. They must want. So you have to teach them, share with them why they want that information. So how do we do that? It's a good question. You're out there. How do you do that? You need modern day diagnostics. It's called the value add. So what do we have in our office today? The majority of you already have digital x-rays. I get that. Digital x-rays enhance communication. Yes, they're 2D. Yes, they're necessary today. But they're only part of really the diagnostic approach. Fluorescence, transilluminations for caries detection. Fluorescence, we use fluorescence routinely on class 1 and smooth surfaces which do not have restorations, more younger adults, teenagers. I don't see kids, don't ask me any questions about kids. But its fluorescence is to me a far more accurate way, more sensitive way than an Explorer. Transillumination, products like CaryView by Dexis. This has revolutionized our protocols for teenagers. Why do you take x-rays on teenagers? You're looking for interproximal decay. Our protocol is when a patient is under 18, we do CaryView first. It's just more accurate looking interproximally on these kids than an x-ray. So we have a reduced radiation exposure to these kids. That's part of our protocol, and it's in our in-office membership plan. Digital records. Almost every patient is digitally scanned. I'll show you that. I walk in a room, they're already digitally scanned. How can you not want to communicate? You've already bought a digital scanner. Yes, it takes great impressions. Why not use it for every initial exam? Let your assistant do this. And cone beams. Well, cone beams, they've just changed our practice. They've really gone from routinely taking an FMX in 2D to rarely do we take an FMX. Rarely. It's 2D bite wings, whether vertical or horizontal, and a cone beam when necessary. And in my adult population, routine. Routine. So much more information than an FMX. So much more. So the process really is this. This is my modern day technology approach. My team member has taken a cone beam. My team member has already digitally scanned the patient. And my team member has already taken vertical or horizontal bite wings. Maybe a periapical or two. The patient's sitting there and they're surrounded by information, not intimidated. It's a surrounding of information. So now we've converted and moved on cone beams versus FMXs. Digital scanning is mandatory for all our new patients. Why? It's all about treatment plan acceptance. It's all about communication. And it's all about enhancing your diagnostic skills. Isn't that what you want to be doing? Of course. If you're already digitally scanning for impressions, why wouldn't you use this as a communication tool? Data storage, records. You know where they are when they walk into your office. It's a great tool. And cone beams, I can't imagine a day without a cone beam in my practice. We take 70 a month now. They have replaced the FMX. This was our setup 2 years ago. Full mouth series of x-rays. Gone, pretty much. Digital scanning, still well in. And in this patient, we were using CariView and Spectra. Again, what's appropriate for the patient? Digital scanning, this is where we're all going. But the added value is the superior involvement of communication and permanent documentation when they came into your office. It is so great to have. So how do we do this? This is my dental assistant. They can scan full mouth in probably 5 minutes max. 5 minutes. If it's a really challenging patient, I'll come in and help. But routinely 5 minutes. They are responsible for reviewing their scan, reviewing the images they take, the cone beam, the bite wings, even a CariView or Spectra, a fluorescence or a transillumination, and I will guide them to what I want to be done. Equally, what I will say is the assistant has this expanded role now in front of the patient. Instead of just being there to turn over a room and hand instruments, they become part of the diagnostic team. They're taking all these images and data. So what happens is that if I have a younger individual who has unrestored class 2s or class 1s, we'll use Spectra and CariView. We look at this as becoming the standard in our practice for caries detection, and this allows us to modify our protocols. So like I said earlier, we really don't take x-rays on teenagers unless necessary. We do a low-dose cone beam. Yes, that's radiation, but it's low dose, and we no longer take Panorexes. So it's bite wings and a low-dose cone beam. And bite wings, they're gone. So now the radiation is really just one thing, a low-dose cone beam, and that could be a 12, 16, whatever your protocols are. But bite wings, we'll only take a bite wing after we may be suspicious of something that we're not seeing something on CariView or Spectra. It's always diagnostically driven. So this is where it all happens. This is where the discussions begin. Cone beam, digitally scan, and an FMX sent from a previous dentist incorporated into our DEXIS imaging. So the patient is surrounded by this, and now I have to get this patient involved. That's the key. So here's my assistant walking the patient through and letting the patient understand area by area what's going on. The patient is 100% focused on this. Why? We're all visually learning. Look at YouTube. It's all visual learning. So this patient is focused. And then what do? We'll bring the cone beam over right to the monitor, patient sitting up, and we're just going back and forth from the digital scan to the cone beam. We'll manipulate the cone beam to explain to the patient what's going on and watch what happens. And routinely, this is what we want, and you'll see what happens. But if you just tell the patient something, they'll forget it. If you show them, they will remember. But if you involve them, they're going to really understand. This is what I want to do in my initial exam. This is what we all want to do. But you really need these technologies to get to where we're going, both diagnostically and for communication. Look at her. She's touching the monitor. She wants to understand. This is the conversion. Now, did I treatment plan her that day? No. I identified all the problems, took probably 8 to 10 digital pictures, and we made a second appointment to come back. I was a second opinion. So how do we convert her further? We convert her further into treatment plan acceptance by bringing the patient back and going through different options. Here's a key statistic. 78% of all the dentistry diagnosed in the United States is not even begun in the first year. 78%, which means we're really bad communicators. So only 22% is actually begun in year 1 after diagnostics. Not good. Here's our new Selfie. This is what we want. But here's part 2. So now my assistant's been involved, and here's my front team. Sarah's walking the patient through our in-office membership plan. We launched this almost 5 years ago. We have 750 members. And if she's going to sign up for our in-office membership plan, you know she's going to show up for the next visit for sure, which is going to be her treatment planning and all of her options. And I'll just walk you through the experience. The experience really involves us walking her through, and the plan I won't get into today, but all offices really should have these. And they don't have to be fancy, but they can really be all about your mission. So for example, we include Carie View and Spectra in this. Whether we're doing annual bite wings or annual Carie View, it's really up to us. It's all included in our membership plan. And we now have a family plan. If they're into what we want to do, they're going to all join our plan unless they have outstanding other insurance. If they have other insurance, great. We even have plans for that. Another course, another day. Here's the conversion. Here's the communication, eye to eye, and she's already pulling out her credit card. I love this. I love it. So now here's the question. We've got a new patient. The first question is, what would you pay to acquire a new patient? What would you pay? Would you pay $100 for every new patient? Would you pay $200? Would you pay $300? What would you pay? So now I ask that question. Let's say your dental neighbor is retiring and wanted to sell you 500 patients. Would you pay that doctor if he was retiring $50,000, $100,000? Would you pay him $150,000 or more at $100, $200, or $300 a patient? So you've got this initial patient, you've gone through this wonderful way of doing this, but how would you pay for these new patients? How much? So the question then is, how many of these patients will stay in your practice year after year? And are you tracking your active patients? This is something we so believe in. So when you have a new patient, how do we keep them as a long-term active patient? You've got to be tracking these because this is all about office growth. And then you go, what's the average value of a patient yearly? What's that value? So if you just take a basic number, it's really knowing what do they spend in your practice every year if you include hygiene and overall dentistry. So in our practice, all we did was we took our gross collections. You could do production, that's fine. But we did our gross collections and divided by our 2,100 active patients, 2,125. And yearly, on average, our patients spend $1,270 in our practice. Now, of course, some patients will only have 2 or 3 hygiene visits. It's less. But on average, $1,270. If it's $1,270, would I want to spend $100 to acquire a new patient? And the answer is, of course I would. Of course I would. So now, if your website, if you were presented, a company wanted to come in and build you a website for $20,000, a lot of money, And they'd give you great SEO, and then after the first year, they charge you $5.99 a month. Is that a great investment? So how do you follow if this is a great investment? Are you tracking where your patients are coming from? So every month we track, every quarter we track, and this is where data analytics will go. And we do our own analytics because some of the data analytics still do not give us what we want. So we'll follow internet referrals. We'll follow internet private pay referrals. And so what will happen is on our internet referrals, we will see that we're getting 49 new patients in the first quarter. We're getting 43 patient referrals. And this is how we track what we should be investing in. But let's focus on the internet. 49 new patient referrals. So with 49 new patient referrals over the first 3 months at a cost of $1,599 a month, you cost a lot of money. Well, it really equates to $95 a patient, so I'm really happy with the internet. My website, my SEO, for 49 new patients, and that's just private pay. We belong to one PPO, and we're gonna get, some of those are gonna come in, and we limit those. But if I can be equating a private pay patient to a $95 and know what my yearly spend is, I wanna make sure my initial exam goes great, and I keep them. And that's up to you and your team. What about personal referrals? How do you say thank you? I do the same thing. I basically spend $100 per patient. Am I old-fashioned? No. I'm not old-fashioned. But what I will do is we will give gift cards out to a new patient. They get $75 off. Patients will refer a friend in or a family member. They get $75 off. And the patient referring gets a $25 credit, to their account. A thank you letter goes out with every new patient, and everything is personalized, along with a letter from our office manager, all personalized. This is our bread and butter. Personal referrals, they're the best. How do you say thank you? We think for $100, that's our cost in. What a deal. That's how we look at it. So the next question would be, how important is that first call from the internet or a referral? How important is it? Are you tracking your missed calls? So here you are, you're spending money on SEO, you're spending money on the website. What if you're missing calls? And you know you're missing calls. So when we went to Weave back in 16, we saw that we had 9,700 inbound calls, 2,249 missed calls. We were missing 18% of all our calls. I was like shocked. The national average for a dentist is 38%. Now Weave has a really cool feature, and I'm going to add to that. But this is all about that initial exam, that call. But let's still stick on this. So I get monthly data and monthly reports on missed calls, missed patient calls, the volume of calls, and really when those calls happened. So if you see that you're missing calls at lunch, or like when we were missing our calls, we were missing calls during lunch and from 4 to 6. Well, we had to make sure someone was answering the phone during lunch, not an answering machine, and from 4 to 6. And what happens is our missed calls went way down. So in 1 month, we had 1,676 calls. We missed 320, and our percentage was down to 9% missed calls. Let's go back. I just want to show you this. Now we can track missed calls if they are patients or not patients, non-patients, could be a vendor. So I want to know if the patients are calling if we're missing them. And another new feature coming from Weave shortly will be, is it a missed new patient call? That becomes critical. So what happens if you missed 5 to 10 new patient calls a month? Well, if the average spend in my practice is $1,270, that could be a difference of $6,000 a month. Add that up over 12 months. That's a huge missed opportunity. And again, I'm just ballparking what those missed opportunities are. And what is the likelihood of an internet patient, somebody who doesn't know you, they're looking at reviews, what's the likelihood of an internet patient calling you back? And the studies show 7%. If you don't pick up that call, your office misses it, they're going to go right to the next dentist on that list, look at the review, and buy. 93% of the time, they're going buy. You don't want that to happen. You captured them. How do we keep them? So one of the latest features is called the missed call text. The phone rings, and your team member can't answer the phone. A text immediately goes out from your office, and you preset it. This is Sarah from the University Dental Professionals. I'm helping another patient right now. I'll call you back in 3 to 5 minutes, or you can text me. And routinely, they'll immediately text because nobody wants to talk. So the patient will text, and Sarah can be on the phone or checking somebody out. She could be two-way texting because it all comes up on her monitor. This is one of the added features of Weave, of which there are so many. So I look at this number of 7%. If you get that simple missed call text, that's 7% of people who will call back. That number's gone away. What will happen is you will book this appointment. You won't have missed those calls. And that becomes key technology, key efficiencies in your practice. And there's more. And then the next question really on the new patient exam is, what if after the first call only half your patients booked an appointment? What if? What if only half booked an appointment? They talk to somebody and they don't book. Only half book. And really one of the problems is we don't know if we're not recording our calls. So with Weave, we record all of our calls. We tell the patient, this call is being monitored. And what happens is we take these calls over the last 3 years, and our front team has learned how to answer questions right from that first call, which means we have far better, superior phone conversation. It becomes critical to understand that. So then we'll track new patients. And why is this a big deal? Well, this is all in the numbers. In 2018, in the first quarter, we had 163 new patients, and we had 190. So our SEO is working, we're growing, and that's a good growth model. But then the question is, what's happening with those 190 new patients? What's happening? And these numbers show this growth curve, but I just want to know, are these new patients staying? Because if you see a new patient and they're not staying, these numbers really don't give you good data. So what is the data? How many new patients stay in an office after you see them? It's startling. And if you go back and look at how many new patients didn't come back to your office, you'll see it's startling. The national average is 41%. So what does that mean? That means that 59% of all those patients that you're spending your time on your initial exam are not coming back. That's a crazy number. So your practice could be spending a lot of money, and those patients are just spilling out. So what do the numbers really show? The numbers really show that the bottom 10% of offices have basically 82% of the patients never come back. Averages, basically 41% come back. And the top 10% have 65% come back. And that's shocking in itself. That's shocking in itself. So what we like to do is we want to track new patients. And that becomes key. So let me show you on this new analytic tool from Weave, just launched in our office. So we had 40 patients that week. We had 8 patients that did not schedule, 8 patients. We then will track these 8 patients. We'll click on that little tab, and as you click on this tab, you will see all the patients come up who did not reappoint. You don't have to go into Eaglesoft. You don't have to go into Dentrix or Open Dental. It all comes up because Weave is integrated into these formats. And then all you have to do is now click on Felix, HIPAA made up name, but you click on Felix, and what happens? As you click on Felix, you can see that there's $469 of treatment plan dentistry. No appointment was made. That's the red little mark here. We can call Felix right from there, email, or text. Think of the efficiencies now. So in our morning huddle, we follow these patients and it gives us direction of where we're going. And we don't want patients to fall through the cracks here. So what do? We give the direction to our front team member. We want to know why didn't they come back. And routinely, we will call the patient first, and the numbers show really more often than not, we leave a voicemail and we don't get a call back. So now we're really leading to more and more texting, and we want to make the texting personalized. So through Weave, we can make this personalized. Good afternoon, Ms. Faulkner. We wanted to follow up and schedule you. It'll only take about an hour. This is our way of trying to recapture those patients who've walked out, didn't make an appointment, and believe me, they're happening in all your practices. So we have tools for missed calls, and now we have tools that in our morning huddles we go over who didn't reappoint. These tools become invaluable in keeping your office growing. Really, the bottom line is you want to maximize your ROI. It's about really your ROI on marketing and keeping these patients long-term and transitioning them really long-term into your practice. So the initial exam turning into ROI on marketing. How do we capture these people and make them long-term patients? That's really the key. I want to thank you for sharing your time with me today. We have taken really the initial exam and upped our initial exam. That's been our goal. I want to up the initial exam, create the Wanton need. And I've tried to show you technology approaches about capturing these patients, following up with these patients, and even if you miss a call, how you still have that second and third chance of maintaining them in your practice or getting them into your practice. Thanks for joining. Have a great day.